Well, ladies and gentlemen of Hashtag Nation, it's draft time, so we don't sleep here. We're always doing work. So if you guys are out there, you want to hop in the chat, and you guys want to have a little bit of fun, we can do that. I have joining me today for this very special edition at 2 p.m. During quarantine, Clayton Garrett of the Cold Front Report, who joined us last night on the live stream of the draft. He's going to be joining us tonight as well. It's going to be a lot of fun to cover a few things. As you guys could see from the title, who is making their way into the AFC East. We got some new faces coming in. We got Apex and Stefan, who are old faces, coming in the chat right away. But I just want to bring Clayton on. And Clayton, just right out of the gate, before we get to the names of the new faces coming into the AFC East, what did you think about the first round in general? Being the first virtual draft and everything, did it play out like you thought a normal draft would at it was supposed to be in Vegas? So I'm curious to get your thoughts on that first.
I mean, I can sit here and say I feel a little different about it than I would in years past. I feel like some players did get overdrafted, in my opinion. I felt like some players were reached on, such as Brandon Ayuk and Jordan Brooks. But I feel like that could be a result of teams having little to no familiarity with some of these prospects without being able to get them in the door. I mean, I'm not exactly privy on who these teams have met with and to what extent.
Yeah. But
I think that the familiarity and knowing who these players are as people, that could definitely play a role in some of these players being overdrafted as teams have somewhat familiarity with them. So obviously they feel comfortable with investing a first-round pick in them.
Yeah, going back to, I guess this draft will definitely highlight some of these teams, the 32 teams in the NFL, how their scouting departments work in the fall, and how they were able to scout some of these guys and who they were sold on. And, maybe some of these teams just went with guys that they knew that, okay, we like these guys. Maybe some teams, hit the panic button coming up because they weren't able to interview a lot of these guys. A lot of pro days were canceled right when that happened. But you were able to get at least the Senior Bowl and the Combine to probably give you a frame of reference of what you wanted and who you basically wanted to take. But there are, when the night started, there were 5 players that were going to get drafted into the AFC East. The Patriots ended up trading out. And I honestly, like I said during the live stream yesterday, I thought it could have got a lot worse for the Buffalo Bills and who came into the division, who you have to contend with, who you have to see twice a year. And that's basically what this episode is going to be. We're going to focus on the 4 names that made their way to the AFC East and how the Bills, this early try to rectify, solving those high-profile players. And, I mean, I think it was interesting the fact that at least 2 of them weren't graded as first-round players in that respect. So it's going to be great to talk about it. And the first guy that we're going to go over is going to be the quarterback going to Miami, good old Tua Tagovailoa. Isn't it crazy? Like 2 out of the 4 names were like people have trouble spelling right now. If they had a chance to, it would be. I can't spell Tagovailoa. I can't spell Igbenogany. I can't spell either one of those ones. It's crazy.
I mean, Tua is so easy to spell. It's 3 letters. You can't mess it up. You might as well just call him by his first name.
Tua and Noah. Those are the only 2 guys we're going to call by their first name. So
Tua Noah.
So, yeah, coming into it, Tua Tagovailoa, who a lot of people thought could have been number 1 overall to Cincinnati. Some of his medicals came out, and, his jersey number matched his Wonderlic, which is never a good sign if you're a quarterback. So, going over that, what do you think Tua brings to the AFC East now that already has Allen and Darnold?
I mean, it brings upon this young quarterback renaissance and really just in this division. I mean, you have 3 teams that were just the lackeys to the New England Patriots for the last 20 years that are trying to bring themselves back to relevance. I mean, the Bills have done that to some degree by making the playoffs 2 of the last 3 seasons. But now you have the Jets, who I think are just as much of a scrub as they were 3 years ago, and then the Dolphins, who I think are building a real caliber team. At least the beginning portions of it. I like what they're building. I love their front office, and I think the additions that they're making on the defensive side of the ball so far are solid. And I have faith in Brian Flores. I think Brian Flores, if any Patriot descendant coach is going to be successful, I believe it'd be Brian Flores. And I like their GM. And, you look at these moves they're making. They're solid foundational moves, some of which that you could potentially parallel to the Bills when Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane were brought here a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, Smiley716 even put it in the chat. He said, and Rosen's in the division. don't.
I mean, so
You
I've
see him
heard
getting
that
traded to the
heard,
Patriots?
I thought that would be a solid move for the Patriots and Rosen, but I don't. I mean, it depends on how much confidence the Dolphins really have in Rosen. I mean, wouldn't that be really ironic if they traded Josh Rosen and then they went back to being the beating boys for the Patriots again?
Oh my
But I
God.
mean, I'm hearing that the Dolphins have little to no trust in Josh Rosen, which isn't really surprising. I mean, that's such a downspin, and considering where I was a couple of years ago of just not watching the entire draft because I heard the wrong Josh called at 7 overall.
Oh yeah.
Now one's almost out of the league. The other, I mean, I think he's one of the best quarterbacks from that 2018 draft class.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the fall of Rosen, where in back-to-back years a quarterback is taken in the first round after you were taken in the first round. So I don't know what is going on with that kid down in Miami or what happened in Arizona or whatever, but you started to see, like, you know, coaching changes. That's one of the things that probably manifest them going in a different direction than Rosen. And I mean, you couldn't really beat out Fitzpatrick, and you lost your job to Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, Bills fans know what that's like for a quarterback to do that.
I mean, there's some people out there that would take Fitz over Allen. I mean, I'm not.
Those people should be quarantined after the quarantine is over. That's what.
Don't worry.
But I mean, Tua coming into the division definitely makes it a lot more exciting. Now, what you had, like you said, for years, you had Tom Brady, and then the rest of the AFC. You had like guys like Jay Fiedler. You had guys like J.P. Lossman. You had guys like, Chad Pennington, who I thought, he was serviceable. But you had Tom Brady going against all these quarterbacks that were not top caliber quarterbacks, and now it seems like everything completely flipped in a matter of one draft night and 2 years, where you got Darnold, Allen, and Tua now in the division, and then Jarrett Stidham, Brian Hoyer. Like, who are the Patriots going to get? But I think this is a guy that is a direct result of what's been going on in the AFC East. Is you need a young, mobile quarterback with a good arm. Now, the only question mark that they're going to have is, can he stay healthy? Can he stay upright? Can he stay on the field? And, you know, the Dolphins had 3 first-round picks to play with, and I think they solidified a lot of things on their offense there that the Bills are going to have to contend with. And as much as the Bills and Bills fans want to say, listen, this is our division to lose, there's some lot of talent coming into the division. So I think we have to be very conscious of that.
I mean, if I'm the Dolphins picking their, I believe, 31, right? Were they picking 31 or 26th?
They were picking at 26th, and then they
traded out to 31.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, if I'm in the Dolphins sitting there at 31, I think you have to solidify the offensive line. If that's me making that pick, I would have instantly drafted Josh Jones. I would have instantly drafted maybe even Matt Pert out of UConn. I think there were solid options there along the offensive line, specifically at the tackle position, which is a huge hole for them after they had traded Laramie Tunsil. And, I mean, you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You add a piece around your young quarterback, and you're going to protect him and potentially protect him from further injuries that he is sustained in college. I think that would have been a better move, but I did understand the move to draft Igbenogany. I think I said it right that time.
Igbenogany, yep, that's it. That's it right there. 110%.
Man, that's a alphabet soup, right?
That's the funniest nickname I ever heard for Igbenogany is that. And that's a name that we're going to have to become very familiar with in the AFC East. Just touching on Tua real quick again, I think that that's something that the Miami Dolphins needed. Everyone knew they needed a quarterback. They had 3 first-round picks. They had that to play with. And then they ended up taking Andrew Jackson and Noah Igbenogany. And it was funny because they had just gotten rid of Tunsil and they got rid of Fitzpatrick. Now they bring in another corner or another defensive back and another lineman, where I kind of looked at it in this respect. They got rid of Tunsil and they got rid of Fitzpatrick. 2 guys who would have cost them, probably would have cost them to get Byron Jones. So now you take the money that you were probably going to allocate for Tunsil and Fitzpatrick, you get a top 5 corner, and now you get 2 first-round picks that replace those 2 players. Now, I'm not saying that, Jackson is on the same level as Tunsil. I'm not saying that Igbenogany is the same level of Fitzpatrick. However, you have first-round talent, and Flory's coming off of that Belichick tree. He takes volume over anything. You know what I mean? Usually the volume comes in the second and third rounds, but he was able to get that in the first round. and then even upgrade his secondary even more. So now you have Igbenogany, who's a speedster. You have Howard, and now you have Byron Jones, along with Eric Rowe, who came down from New England as well to try to teach all these guys, everything that's going on. Do you think that the Igbenogany pick was a direct result of the Bills trading for Stephon Diggs?
I think it's a direct result of what modern NFL has turned into, which is a passing league where you have teams like the Kansas City Chiefs who have 4 options that they can beat you with that could easily be the number 1 option on any other offense in the league. Honestly, I mean, you look at the trio, not even the Bills have, and then you add in Dawson Knox, and that I think that's really the trend. And the Bills are an option or are an example of that nowadays. But the good example is the Kansas City Chiefs. The stereotypical example is the Kansas City Chiefs. That is what every team is trying to build, and the Bills are, I believe, they're a prototype of that type of offense where they can really beat you from multiple angles with every facet of their offense, where you have an athletic tight end, and then you have a good slot receiver, and then 2 receivers on the outside who can either take the top off of you or burn you with the intermediate routes. Then they also have Devin Singletary, who you can't really, and you don't really have the option of stacking the box against anymore. And I believe another running back is going to be an option here on day 2 of the draft. So they really have a lot of options on that offense. So yeah, I do think it's a move to kind of counteract the multi-dimensional offenses with receiving options that we see nowadays in the NFL.
I tend to hold a team. I mean, and it hurt me for so many years to say the Patriots, but if a team just won the Super Bowl, that is the team that is at the top of the mountain until said otherwise. You know what I mean? And I said this about the New England Patriots, and I remember Bean saying it. I don't know if he said it kind of to inflate their ego or whatever, but he said, listen, until you take over the East, it's still the Patriots division. So once you can't be the king unless you take the crown. And what the Bills were able to do is effectively, get all these toys and all these moving parts onto their team in the offseason, so you don't know where they're going to go at 54, I think, which was so huge. You saw glaring holes for the Miami Dolphins. You saw glaring holes for the New York Jets. And they seem, and people will say reach, and it's coming up in the chat quite a bit. That is what happens when you don't equip your team in the offseason, where they don't know where you're going to go in the draft. And you can go multiple places. Where the Bills currently stand at 54, they can go anywhere, which is why it's been such a fun debate in this offseason. The fact is, are they going to go with a complimentary running back? Are they going to go with the safety? Are they going to go to the tackle? Are they going to go with this guy, that guy? Which we're going to find out tonight. And it's 5 hours away. I mean, at least till the start of the draft here on Hashtag Sports, Hashtag Nation. Make sure you're here. Clayton will be here. Ryan and the gang, Drew, Dan, Spencer. Paul will actually be on tonight. I will not be on. I will be behind the camera, so please make sure that you get here tonight. But let's go over the Jets pick. Let's go over the Jets pick, which was the mammoth among men. He's like the Braun Strowman of offensive tackles. The guy is just an absolute beast, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't say he's a raw beast.
You're being very nice by saying a raw beast. I mean, just yeah, that is what it is. I mean, I'm not going to get into the drug test flag. I'm not really concerned about that. That's old news for folks nowadays. I mean, these players can really do what they want with the new CBA, and then but his skill set. When you had Tristan Wirfs there, I believe Jedrick Wills was still there as well, and you picked Mekhi Becton. I thought this was the most questionable move to that point up until the Raiders took Henry Ruggs over every other receiver that was available, that being Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb. I don't like the Mekhi Becton pick for the Jets. I agree with the position that they had picked. I did not think it was suitable for them to pick a wide receiver this early in the draft. As I've touched on the live show, that the depth of this class may not be with the picking the best or the first wide receiver off the board, whereas you can get one in the second or third round that could have reasonable production compared to those that were picked early. And I thought that they needed another guy to protect Sam Darnold, because you look at the linemen they added in free agency, all of them are really just average to mediocre players who really don't have that pedigree in the NFL, who have really just been middling players throughout their whole career, who really haven't been anything substantial and really haven't been anything awful, just passable. And they're giving these guys $10 million per year. A good example is George Fant. And I thought if the Jets were to have picked Tristan Wirfs or Jedrick Wills, that would have been a home run pick for the Jets. I couldn't even deny that. But they picked the raw 360-pound, 5'10" running Mekhi Becton over the two of the top 3 tackle prospects in this class.
Could it be because of the offseason moves that they made? They feel comfortable enough to take him and not let him go somewhere else? Or did you think they may have caught wind that, I mean, New England needs a lot of line help? Is this one of those scenarios where, like, listen, we didn't get enough value that we thought we were going to get trading out of the 10th pick and probably acquiring some more picks? Let's try to take this guy. Maybe he can learn. If he doesn't learn, maybe we can put him down to guard. I mean, that's a huge guard, first of all. And it was in the chat. Stephen Gorney, he said, listen, he'll be a guard before his 5th-year option. Book it. And that, I mean, a lot of the transitions, what happen in the NFL with some of these players, if they don't happen to work out at tackle, is that they do end up moving down into guard. So, I mean, you got Van. I think Van Rotten's there. They signed McGovern from Denver as a center. So it seems very Buffalo Bills-esque in how they were trying to rebuild their offensive line in the offseason. And we talk about all the time being a copycat league. A lot of teams happen to we talk about reaching. They're expecting the potential of the player in their system to thrive.
The stream went off.
Oh, it did?
It said policy violations for some reason.
Oh, I was playing YouTube videos. That's probably why.
Sons of bitches. No creativity on YouTube.